Hi, this is the Perio Patient Podcast, episode number 16, and I'm Dr. Ben Young. And today I'd like to just talk about teaching. A lot of reasons to do that. Number one is children are going back to school, theoretically. Under COVID, they're all in this part of Texas having to stay home and have it on Zoom meetings. So my heart goes out to the kids and to the parents, grandparents, and others, and teachers who are trying to convey information to these little ones. It's going to be challenging. I remember that before I got into kindergarten, my mother had taught me to read, and that was a real boost. She did that for all of us kids. We went through it in a phonics book. It was called Teaching Johnny to Read. And I know that maybe some of you older folks will remember this. The author was Rudolf Flesch, and you can Google him. But he was a big phonics proponent, which frankly was the way reading had been taught centuries before. And then we came up with new methods that didn't require sounding out letters, which to me is kind of the key. By going through the phonics, I was able to sound out words I didn't know, and I would get the words right, and then I could learn what the words meant. But that was a big boost for me. I'd learned my alphabet and all the sounds and everything before I came into kindergarten, so there wasn't any problem with me moving on in school. I think that was a real boost. So as you're having to deal with these little ones, if you are, keep that in mind, that it may be a hassle, it may be frustrating, but if you can help them at home learn to read, sound out letters, it's huge. They may learn it, it may be ironically that they'll learn it better having had the shutdown than they would have if they'd been in a larger class. Who knows? It's not known, but could be. I heard somebody recently make the statement that teaching is a form of translation, and in order to teach well, you couldn't just repeat something. You had to learn it in a new way yourself in order to describe it so that somebody else could understand it. And I think that's a really good way to think about what teaching is. It's a form of translating. So you need to come up with creative ways of explaining something, and perhaps by doing that, you're going to learn something new that you didn't know before. And it happens to me a lot. One of the big deals that I discovered as I wrote the book, The Joy of Flossing, was the reality that flossing doesn't treat anything. It doesn't treat diseases. I'd never considered that, but the truth of the matter is that a lot of people who have bleedy gums or problems will decide, well, maybe if I floss, it'll get better. And it won't. That's one of the things that I think is important to explain. That floss is something you do to prevent disease from occurring or recurring, but it's in a healthy state. It's to keep the plaque down so that the body's immune response doesn't kick in, that then causes, or at least with the association with the bacteria, doesn't cause the disease. Periodontal disease is a chronic inflammation. It is the combination of the toxic elements that are coming from bacteria and also the toxic elements that are within the cells, the white blood cells that are trying to fight off the bacteria, spilling out into the general area and causing destruction of other cells in the area. And down the road, I want to get into that in some detail. But to do that, I'm going to have to translate for you. I'm going to have to study it well enough so I can take some of the scientific terms and turn them into something that will make them better, more easily grasped and understood. The thing about it is, a lot of these things make sense, but the terms are very difficult to remember. And I'm confessing that myself. The reason for that, I think a lot of times, is the fact that scientists are studying things and they're working along and they are descriptive of what they're finding, and it's relative to other chemicals and proteins and this and that. So they don't name them with any idea that it's important to a general public. They're describing things so that their fellow scientists that are part of that area of research will understand something about what they're doing and where it comes from. But it is insider language for sure. And to teach it, though, those who are called to teach it have to somehow translate what's going on at the cutting edge of research back down to where other people are, so that the knowledge, the general knowledge, goes into the other aspects of life and isn't just exclusive to the scientists, if that makes sense. We have to get to the point where we can translate scientific elements, research, and those sorts of things in ways that convey the information, but don't distort it so much that what we're actually teaching is wrong. So it's difficult, it's challenging, but I think if there's cooperation on both the teacher and learner side, it can work. So you have to work with me, I'll work with you on trying to get information to you that I hope will help you. The other thing that this idea of teaching and translation, I do remember that a mentor of mine who was a professor and very, very well-known researcher talked about the importance of being able to translate from the front and bring it back to people that were behind us in terms of the knowledge base. So that's what teaching is. It's going actually the opposite direction of research. Research is reaching out into the unknown, and that's where the focus is of the people who are doing it. If they're good at teaching, they then have to turn their eyes backwards and have to translate what's going on at the front back. So when I'm in clinical practice, I have to take what's known in the scientific areas and what's going on in research and translate it back to my general dentist colleagues and dental hygienists colleagues, professionals. But also I think we all then have to move it back even further to the general public. And that needs to be done. When it isn't done, there is actually a false separation that I think is not healthy. It's not healthy to have mystery in some areas. We should be striving to explain things as best we can. We're not here to be for other people to be impressed with what we know. The knowledge should be open and available to everybody, and that's our role. So as a periodontist, my role is to study my specific aspect of dentistry beyond what other people are required or should be doing, because they have other things they're doing and it's not their focus, but that is my focus. But then I have to turn around and be able to be available to give information and help others as they come across it. And one of the things I actually enjoy a lot is when I get to consult with some other dentist about a case, a problem, this or that. Oftentimes people will call or they'll email me x-rays or whatever. I think that's just fantastic. They want to know something. I want to tell them what I know. And it's also in the reverse. I find a lot of times I'm learning more than I'm teaching from people in general dentistry and hygiene and others, because their focus and emphasis is different than mine. And I think that we need to just kind of work to all cooperate to explain and be able to support one another with the knowledge, the unique knowledge elements that each one of us have. And we're just in dentistry. I mean, I've got a lot of friends in medicine and law and engineering, and there's a lot to learn all over the place. We don't have a corner on any of that. We're just kind of focused in our little niches at times, just like everybody else. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Have a good one.